What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Holistics Highlights. This is Scott Kaplan with Grande Alejandro Padilla, Big John Browner, and the brains of the operation, Ruthie Edelson. Ruthie, it's so great to see you. What's going on?
I'm in a really good mood today.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about our guest. I'm really excited to hear about your time up in Mammoth. Thank you for sending me those pictures. That was so fun to see. I'm super stoked to be talking to Ben from Luchador Quell and Dreamt today.
All right. Well, we're going to meet our guest coming up here in just a minute. Let me start off by telling you guys. So I was in Mammoth, California this past weekend at a blues festival called Blues-a-Palooza. It's a big deal in that town. It's like the 26th annual. And
I think like 12,000 people show up for it, right? 12,000.
It was amazing. 14? Yeah, there's like 2 stages in the middle of the woods. I mean, I promise you, it is literally in the middle of the woods.
Amazing.
And Ruthie, they have this big beer festival. So there's like tents everywhere where people are trying different beers. But brilliantly, Mammoth Holistics, which is a part of that community now, they also had a tent and they were displaying different products. And here I am, I'm taking a look and I'm talking to your people, and I wanted to go over and say hello and of course promote the podcast to everybody and tell the folks at Mammoth Holistics that we were going to be talking about them this week. So I went over there and I met everybody and I saw the displays that they had. It's just great to have ambassadors at big events like that so that they can say, welcome to town. And while you're here, come visit the shop. Because when people go into Mammoth Holistics, they're like, wow, what a beautiful place it is. So great job by your team up in Mammoth this past weekend.
Awesome. Thanks. Did you get a penny pre-roll card?
Not only that, yes, I did. I wish I had it with me right now. I got penny pre-roll and I loved it when they gave it to me. Like, hey, go by the store and get yourself a penny pre-roll. I was like, hello, for sure. I'm going to do that because I'm at a blues festival in the middle of the woods. I have to have one of those. How do you guys do that, by the way? Penny, these deals that you do sometimes. How do you guys do that?
Well, we just have great partners. So we're able to secure really good pre-rolls and partner with them. And then we're able to offer that back to our customers. So yeah, it's good relationships, Scott.
Yeah, I love it. I do. I thought it was great. Like I said, I was promoting the Holistics Highlights podcast to everybody that I met.
Oh my gosh. So I had an interview and the guy comes in, he's like, well, I'm just loving your podcast. And I love meeting all the owners behind the brands. It's so amazing. I'm like, please tell me more.
Isn't that nice to hear?
It was great.
We gotta get something with a QR code on it so they could just scan it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. So let's talk about who we're going to meet today, because I find meeting all of these people and these folks who are founding different cannabis brands and have different products, they're all so interesting. The folks that we're about to talk to, we have met, you've known these guys, but I met them in person a few weeks ago and we talked about this on one of the previous episodes. You had an event down at California Holistics in Chula Vista where they came and put on a giant wrestling event, Luchador, the Luchador
Look how
brand.
fun this is. Yeah.
I know. And so you and I were standing there, Ruthie, watching these wrestlers wrestle in the parking lot at California Holistics. And then I got a chance to meet Carolina and Ben, and that's who we're going to talk to today. What inspired you to introduce them to our audience?
Well, first of all, I absolutely love their product, Dreamt. I use it to sleep because I periodically go through times of not sleeping. And so this just puts me out. I sleep so good. And look, I feel fantastic today because I got a great night's sleep. But Carolina's story I find so interesting. I love her background. She's a chemist. It's, all science backed. She really does research. She has such a passion. Her husband, Ben, is so lovely. Their whole team is fantastic. And, she keeps on creating solid brands. So they're fantastic people and they got great brands.
Ciencia Labs is the name of the company. And they've got several different products. Dreamt, you just mentioned, for sleep, Quell for stress relief. You showed us the bag of gummies, the Luchador gummies. So let's hear more about the company and get more information on how they started and the different products that they have. Let's get to it. Here is Ben Mitchell. Ben, it is great to see you. Thanks for being a part of Holistics Highlights. How you doing, man?
Doing really great. Very happy to be here. See some familiar faces. Hi to everybody.
Yeah, I wish that Browner here and Grande would have been with us because Ruthie and I were with you down at California Holistics. What was that, Ruthie? Mid-July?
Yep, mid-July. That was a very fun event. You guys missed out. Bummer
Dude,
for you.
You guys put on an amazing event. I mean, listen, I'm a huge wrestling fan. So I was like, I got to get to California Holistics when Torrey Holistics is a much closer place for me to go. I had to go down there to see the wrestling show that you guys were putting on. Can you start us off with telling us about why your brand has embraced Lucha Libre wrestling and how you guys go about taking this thing on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ciencia Labs, our company, one of our brands, our rec brand is called Luchador. And my wife, my co-founder, who I'm probably going to talk about nonstop the entire time I'm here, she's from Guadalajara. And the real story of the name and why we do the shows is she was very poor when she grew up in Mexico. She would clean homes with her mother. And in the neighborhood she lives in, Talpita, her mom's still there, so we go all the time. There's a really famous arena Coliseo. And there's 10,000, 20,000 person luchador events, lucha libre matches at this place. And Carol always wanted to go, never had any money. Came to America at 24. We met, we started the company, we launched our first brand, Dreamt. And when it was time to do a rec brand, my wife is very driven and holds grudges. She wanted to call it Luchador, and she wanted to throw free wrestling matches at dispensaries, and that's the real genesis of it. And it worked because dispensaries want traffic, we want sell through, we want healthy size orders, and we want brand awareness, and dispensaries want record sales days and good sell through. So it kind of fit together really nicely on our needs and the needs of our dispensary partners.
So you basically started a company to impress a woman, basically.
We were already married, so I don't know if I needed to impress her anymore, but to keep impressing her, yeah, pretty much.
I don't know, man. Browner, you might have gotten that one all wrong, man, because Ben, your wife, you said you're going to talk about her quite a bit. I had a chance to meet her. Ruthie said to me, Scott, you have to come meet Ben and Carolina. And it turns out, and by the way, I can appreciate this, okay? And so can the gentleman who owned Torrey Holistics and California Holistics. The brains of the operation are the women. Ruthie is the brains of Torrey Holistics. Okay. My girlfriend, trust me when I tell you, the brains of my whole operation. And your wife, you said you're going to talk about her. So just prop her up because she's really quite an amazing person.
Great picture.
That is a great picture, you guys. Ben, I didn't even recognize you without the cowboy hat, man.
Wait, I actually pulled it up and I was like, wait, is this Ben?
Ben, talk to us about Carolina and really her background and how she got into the business that you guys founded together.
Yeah, absolutely. Carol, from the day she turned 5 or 6 years old, she knew she wanted to be a chemist and a pharmacologist. And in Guadalajara, she went to these special high schools for just chemistry, industrial chemistry. And went to the University of Guadalajara. I think she has degrees in pharmacology and in chemistry. And then she came to the U.S. to work as a researcher in chemistry at USC. And it went well, started a PhD program in chemistry, and we met around that time. And then towards the end of the program, she started working as a food science consultant, developing products for companies like Gatorade and Taco Bell and Pepsi. Eventually started doing things like HACCP plans for cannabis companies and product development for cannabis companies. And then Cushy Punch, who are like OG legends in cannabis. Right. And, in 2017, we're like the biggest edibles company or biggest cannabis brand maybe in California. They recruited her to be the head of production and their chief scientist. So she was making the products, she was overseeing all the manufacturing, and that was her entry into really like the heart of cannabis, right as it was coming to rec, in 2018. But she was a chemist. Sorry,
but I read that when she was at USC, that she was having a problem with her sleep, and that part of her, I guess, chemistry was she was trying to create some sort of a cannabis product that could help her sleep. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this would have been 7 or 8 years ago. We were living together, and Carol was sleeping terribly, and I've never been a great sleeper, and she looked at research and put out together this process where like 2 hours before we go to bed, we'd take a melatonin pill, and an hour before we went to bed, we'd take a THC and CBD edible in this percentage. And then 45 minutes before we go to bed, we'd take valerian root. And the genesis of our sleep brand Dreamt is she took all of those things and then put them together in one inhalable pen. And that's how the product was created. We passed it around to a few people. They tried it. And, still for me, years later, it's like a knockout punch. You have melatonin receptors in your lungs, which a lot of people don't know. And it's the same type of thing as inhaling cannabis. It's a 15-minute onset versus a couple hours or an hour if you take it orally and has to go through your liver metabolism. There's even studies on melatonin being applied directly to lung tissue that it can do things like prevent fibrosis. So it's healthy, and it really, really knocks you out when you inhale it, especially with some cannabis.
I took a big hit of it last night before going to bed.
So when you're taking part in this stuff, just in your house, hanging out with your wife, and she's like, try this.
Yeah.
Did you ever just go, what's in it? Or you just give it to me?
Time ago, I tried once or twice, and she wants me to be, an unbiased blind participant in a one-man study. So I don't get to know it.
Better be careful, man. Better be careful.
Yeah.
Don't piss her off one day. She's like, here, take this.
Ruthie, I'm curious. You said you took one big hit last night, and how did it do for your sleep?
I slept all night. Actually, I haven't been sleeping. I've been sleeping so well the past couple of weeks. I love their Dreamt pen. We, didn't have it at Torrey for a couple of months at one point, and we have it back. Actually, I think we're sold out of it again. So that's to show you how popular it is, and it works so well.
Well, that's good to know.
But
Seriously.
they also have gummies that we carry. They also have the tinctures. So really, you can't go wrong with this line when you're trying to have a good night's sleep. And what I love about Carolina is that there's so much science behind her products. I mean, she goes really deep, and she goes against a lot of what some of the other cannabis brands are saying about sleep. And it's not necessarily her going against them. It's that her research is showing differently.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because Ruthie, when you and I were sitting there with Ben and Carolina down at California Holistics, I asked her specifically, I said, is this indica or sativa? And Ben, I see that smile on your face, because you were like, uh-oh. Because then she kind of started to tell me that we all have this thought of indica versus sativa. I'm not so sure that she subscribes to that theory. Does she?
Yeah, I mean, you could go back a couple generations, and they're really terms that just describe where the plant initially came from. Two different regions of the world, and over time, there's been so much breeding, and to some degree with certain strains, you can still look at them and say, well, this has these terpenes, and they are generally associated with an indica effect, and these terpenes are in this one, and it is generally associated with a sativa effect. But it's way better to just look at the terpene profile of a flower to kind of gauge it on its own merits than just assume that sativa indica is going to mean something in its effect.
There's so much more to it. And just out of curiosity, and maybe also our listeners, I know we've talked about it on the show before, but does everyone understand terpenes? And
I'm not positive.
Maryland terpene, I know what that is.
No, different terpene, Brown.
Yeah.
Different terpene. That's
terrapin, right?
Maryland terrapins, right?
Yeah.
My bad.
Close
No,
though.
it's all good. Well, I'm not sure I do. I mean, Ben, you use that word terpenes, and I don't know, should we assume that everybody who's listening and watching really knows what all this stuff means? Or are people learning about this stuff because they're listening and watching this podcast? Could you tell us what it is?
Sure. I mean, a lot of people in this audience, I bet you have a pretty educated audience when it comes to cannabis. We'll probably know these things, but you'll hear them also described as essential oils. They're found in any plant. The leaves of any plant will have it. And they give specific effects. Sometimes it's flavor, sometimes it's even things like relaxation or sleepiness. And THC and CBD and all the other cannabinoids have these awesome effects. But then there's this entire other set of things called terpenes or essential oils that give other specific effects too.
So, as you guys are trying different things and you are growing within this industry, What have you found to be the biggest hurdle or the hardest thing that you've come across so far, you guys building your company?
Being frank about it, we're primarily a bootstrapped company, and the generation of the cannabis businesses that came before us were able to raise a lot of money, and then a lot of the investors weren't that happy with the results, and a lot of the people who are invested pretty heavily in cannabis right now, are kind of on the sidelines when it comes to new investments. So finding people who are willing to touch cannabis from an investment standpoint, and then also at the same time haven't been burned yet or are happy with the investments they made, because it's an industry that's still shaking out. So funding is definitely a challenge. I think it's an industry-wide challenge, not just for us though.
Yeah, I would think it's hard. I mean, because I think what you're saying is that years ago, as things were starting to explode, investing in cannabis was a very popular thing to do. And some of those investors have not been happy thus far in some ways. I'm only knowing this stuff because I know several people that own brands that have tried to raise money and either have done it successfully or not. I also know a lot of people that have invested in growing and farming, and not in California at all. I'm talking back in Pennsylvania. So I, as you're saying that, it's occurring to me. Yeah, it must. Listen, raising money in any industry is hard. Okay. It's never easy, but raising money in cannabis right now, what is the biggest challenge you find?
Well, there's a saying that people in cannabis say, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but that a full 90% of the institutional money within the investment world won't touch cannabis at the moment due to bank regulations, the fact that you can't list on a U.S. exchange, federal prohibition, things like that. So, it really limits the pool of money for the entire industry, just in general.
Really interesting, by the way. This is a complete side note. Ruthie and I have been talking about this a little bit offline. I have a friend of mine who was in the student loan business, and then he got into the small business loan business, and now he is in the lending to cannabis companies business because there was nobody lending to cannabis companies. And so I don't know if there are others yet, but he's the first that I know that's in. And I've been spreading the word to everybody I know in the industry. Like, well, hey, look, man, if you're looking for money, especially to bridge from one place to another, dealing with this guy, this is a new opportunity that didn't exist in the cannabis industry, as far as I know.
Yeah. We're also, I would think, Ben, we're expected to comply as a regular business like any other business, but don't get any of the tax breaks. There are so many regulations and so many things that go against really running a successful business. And then the tax issue upon everyone is just compiles, and it just makes it really hard.
Oh yeah, especially for a retailer. We have it pretty easy on that side, not too different from any business, but you guys must get hammered.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is, but what's interesting about that, Ruthie, is when you read local articles that get published in, here in the San Diego, for example, in the local papers, you'll read articles or you'll see television reports about how happy the towns are. For example, where California Holistics were, down in Chula Vista, the local government's like, this is awesome. Look how much money we're producing.
Yeah, Channel 10 came down and did a whole story on taxes at our shop. And our CFO's written articles, in the San Diego Business Journal about the tax issue. So it's a struggle.
So as you guys begin to see the profits increase in states because of what you do, is there any chance that you think that this will become any other industry? You'll be able to grease some palms here and there to get them to relax some of these regulations? Because that's what happens in everything else.
Me personally, I have no idea.
Maybe not grease some palms, but smoke some rooms, if you know what I mean.
Let's hot box this room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see cannabis tax just like any other industry. I don't know if that day will ever come, but I think it would be fair. I think it's the right thing to do, and also would create a little more opportunity and take the squeeze off some of the cannabis companies.
All right. So, hey, Ben, let's do this, because we the five of us, and particularly the four of us, between me, Browner, Grande, and Ruthie, we could get sent off into different tangents because we all have a lot of interest. But we really brought you on today because we want you to talk about the brands and the different effects And what I think is so cool about what you guys do is there is a recreational brand. We talked about Luchador. There's a sleep brand, which, Ruthie was talking about, Dreamt. And then there's a stress relief brand called Quell. So let's just go through the three of them. Why don't you start us off with stress relief and what that's all about?
Sure, absolutely. I happen to have some of our Quell gummies. Right.
Oh, we're getting a little photo bombed behind Ruthie, though. Ruthie's in the office. Ruthie hangs out in her office.
Yeah.
What's up?
Hi, we love Quell. We love Dreamt. We love Luchador.
That's awesome.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea was to develop a portfolio around the four main reasons that people use cannabis. So we've got a pain management brand coming. We've got anxiety, we've got sleep, and then recreation. And then to have this house of brands covering all four of those reasons. And we started with Dreamt, and the premise is really simple. Regardless of the ingested method, be it our pen, our gummy, our tincture, or the shot we've created, which is just a little beverage. Cannabis is awesome for deep sleep, but there's a lot of studies that show it hurts your REM sleep long-term. That's where you dream. That's where things like short-term memory come from. So you always know if you're not getting good REM sleep because you've got those stoner stereotypes like short-term memory loss or not dreaming anymore. And just ask a bud tender if they dream, and they'll look at you like they forgot what that even is. So if you're not getting good REM sleep, and then we put other ingredients in our products like melatonin, valerian root, terpenes from other plants that have journal published studies showing that they help with REM sleep. So you can get better deep sleep from the cannabis and better REM sleep from everything else. Quell is our most recent brand. It's kind of something very similar, that there's a lot of interesting studies on THC and anxiety. We all know that taking a ton of THC can make you really anxious. But there's some studies that show that taking very small amounts of THC in really minor doses, like 1 milligram at a time, can actually reduce anxiety. CBD in higher doses has been shown to reduce anxiety, to create feelings of well-being and low stress. And then CBG, which is another cannabinoid that has some research behind it, but isn't talked about as much as THC and CBD, also has a lot of journal published studies showing that it can do things like promote relaxation and stress relief. So there's this whole world of cannabis and ingredients from cannabis that can help with stress relief and lowering anxiety. But also we put things like 5-HTP and chamomile and other things that have journal published studies from outside of cannabis in the products too. So you get the best of both worlds again, just like with Dreamt. And then Luchador. Got a couple of.
Let me tell you something about Luchador. So I
these don't mess around, right? These
Dude,
are like Andre the Giant type gummies.
Dude, I used Luchador gummies for the first time this past weekend because I got them from you, Ben, when I saw you just a few weeks ago, and I had them in a bag, and I'm like, I'm taking these with me because I went to this Palooza festival up in Mammoth, which, by the way, Mammoth Holistics, Ruthie, your people up there did a phenomenal job of showing off the store, the brands, and what people could get when they were at the show. So that, encouraging them to come to the store, which was only a few blocks away. But I used those this past weekend for the first time, Ben. And let me tell you something. We had such a great time, like smiles on our face from ear to ear. And I've been pretty loyal to a different brand of gummy, but you got me, man.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And lifetime supply if you want them.
Wow.
What's your favorite product that you guys? What's the favorite thing that you guys have that you use the most?
Me, I use either our Dreamt pen or our Dreamt gummies every single night for sleep, and I've used either one or the other for the last at least 3, maybe even 4 years. Still works every time. I vary it up just because it's a little fun that way. The gummies take a little longer to get effect. The pen kind of hits you really hard, and I can't even read a book when I take that pen. I like to have half an hour of line time, but when I take the pen, I just hit it, and then it's almost abrasive how fast it works, and I'm out. I don't get the slow unwind. So sometimes I take the gummy, but it's probably one of those two, the gummies.
Hey, and going back to Quell, because I think everybody here is familiar with pain relief and recreation and sleep stuff, but the stress thing, when you take it, what is the feeling? Are you now tired? Can you proceed with your day? What are the effects of taking something like that?
Sure. Well, Carolina designed it to be something that you could use consistently over the course of the day. That there's a fine line between relaxation and being really tired, or a sense of well-being and being just like zonked, like you took a bunch of Xanax. And she designed the product to be something that gives you an incremental effect, and it isn't extreme, and it isn't the kind of feeling that you get when you do take a pharmaceutical product designed for anxiety, where you might be a little out of it afterwards. That it's low, moderate doses, and also by being 1 milligram of THC per gummy, for example, or per dose of the tincture, you can kind of self-regulate over time. If you can take one dose, and an hour later, if that wasn't quite enough, you can take another, and you're not going to get a high effect because it's 1 milligram per dose, and you're not going to kind of overwhelm yourself with that, chemical feeling that you get from pharmaceuticals sometimes.
Yeah, we're getting great feedback on Quell, because Quell's your newest product, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, yes, we're getting such great feedback on the taste and the effect of it. And it's something that, if let's say you're on your way to work, you get to work and you're overwhelmed by all the so many things happening, that would be the time you could take one. You're not going to feel high, but it's going to help you breathe a little bit easier.
Is there like different, obviously you do tinctures, you do gummies, you do vaping, but do you personally prefer, obviously you said you like the pen when you want to go to sleep, but if you're going to take a Quell, do you prefer a tincture? Do you prefer a gummy? Are there preferred methods of intake?
Me personally, I've found the effect to be about the same between the tincture and the edible, but I think the gummies taste really good, and I'm kind of a sucker for that, so I go with the gummies.
Yeah.
It also depends on how quickly you want something to work. So if it's 11 o'clock and you're like, oh shit, it's too late to take a gummy, you're going to take a hit of your pen because you want to go straight to sleep. But if it's like 8 o'clock on a Friday and you're chilling with the kids, and you have an hour or two or whatever to take it and let it work, then that's when you would take a gummy. But I do agree. I feel like the effect is pretty similar. It's just how quickly do you want something to work?
You want it to happen. Yeah.
What do you think, Alex? How quickly do you want it to happen?
Well, it depends what I'm doing. I don't have kids, so I don't really care if it happens right now or in an hour. So that's I guess that's my bonus. Maybe both.
I really feel like when it comes to going to sleep, I know what you were saying earlier, Ben, about taking the gummy and letting it kind of work on you and having time to wind down. But I love the idea of being able to hit that pen and just crash out.
Me too.
And I feel like, Ruthie, when we were down at California Holistics that there wasn't any dreamt in the store that day. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember you saying to me, you got to try this product, and we're going to be getting some more in. Maybe they sold out that afternoon.
Yeah. I mean, we're carrying all three. We're carrying all three of them at all stores, but there's the dreamt pen at Torrey is out right now. We'll be getting more in, but you can find them at all stores.
Is that another big issue? Because Browner asked a really good question earlier about, challenges in the industry. Ben, is that another issue? If Ruthie runs out and she needs more, is there just a warehouse somewhere filled with vape cartridges, or what's the timetable from the time you go to make it to the time it's sitting on the stores shelves?
Sure. From the moment we produce, we for example, gummies, they take a little longer because they need to dry. It takes a couple days, and then it might take a week to get the test results back. And then about a week later, our distro, they're called Herbal, will come and pick them up, and then they'll sit there for anywhere from 1 or 2 or 3 months. But from at a minimum, from the time we begin a production run up until the time on shelf, it's probably 3 or 4 weeks in total.
And how long do gummies last? In other words, if I have a bag of your gummies and I just happen to find it 3 months later, 6 months later, are the gummies still good, or do they go bad?
We have some limitations on sell-by dates, through CDPH. I think it's 1 year from the date of production, but we've had some gummies here at home that we've just kept kind of to keep an eye on things. And we've made gummies, and it's really funny because you can, especially if you put in the freezer, they're good for years. And we've even taken gummies that are 3 or 4 years old and then taken into a lab and done some tests on things like THC potency. And it might go down from 100 milligrams to 99 or 98. But even after 4 years in a freezer, they're basically still at 100%. I'm not saying you should do this at all. This is just our little.
It's like wine.
I asked this question to everyone we've had on this show, so I'm going to pose it to you. Do you remember the first time you smoked?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Give it to me.
I was 13 years old, so this was like 26 years ago. I've now spent 2/3 of my life getting high, and I was with a girlfriend, and it was her fault, I swear. And we decided this was going to be the day I get high, and we walked down to the park, and we're just walking around the park. And it was on a lake. There's a little lake there, and it's in a small town in Ohio where I grew up, and so I had no way to self-regulate, and I just got really, really, really high, like giggly, eyes glazed over high. And then I came back home like probably 2 hours late. And I walk in the house, and my mom looks at me and immediately sticks her finger in my face and goes, "You're high." It terrified me to my soul. And she was right, I was. But I still feel that feeling of when she put her finger in my face, like she saw straight into me through my eyes.
That is so funny. I can remember being a kid, also about 13 years old, and my father screaming at me, "Get in here!" And I walked into the bathroom. He's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Kind of looks like I don't know, grass or dirt or something, you know?" He's like, "That's marijuana." And I'm like, "I don't think so, Dad. I was like at football practice, and I took off my socks and I made a mess. Sorry, pal." Like, he freaked on me, you know? Right. And the funny thing is, I mean, I have like all these years later now, it's like my kids are like, "Dad, can we go to Torrey Holistics before I go back to school?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, yes. What am I going to do? Say no?" I mean, these are adults now, these kids. So I know.
These are adults now, these kids.
Parents know what I'm talking about, because at some point you're just like, "Hey, listen, I mean, what am I going to do? Tell my kids no, they can't?" I mean, they see me, you know, and they love it.
Better to know than to not know, you know?
Yes.
I don't know. No, no, I'm not sure.
I know.
Well, Ben, listen, we always kind of say this on the way out. It is great talking to you for the first time. Certainly not the last time. I feel like we've just kind of barely started to scratch the surface. There's so much more to talk to you about, but this is the first time we're having you on Holistics Highlights, and we'll look forward to having you back again and see how the company develops and the different brands and then, you know, the different products.
I'm on my way to California to get some dreamt.
You are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
We just ran out of the old gummies that I've never used dreamt, and I now need that pen immediately.
Alex, how about
we're
getting
having
your mother?
a deal. We're having a deal. You buy a pen and you get gummies for a penny. So
Come on.
Nice.
Come
we
on.
got to check the exact dates. That's happening. I think it's happening this weekend. So let me get back to you, Alex. But I'm going to check on that because it's a killer deal we're doing for Luchador, Quell, and Drem throughout the month of August.
Maybe I should post through the month of August. I'll say maybe I should post this podcast sooner.
Well, different days. So I'm just going to figure out. I'll get back to you because we got tons of deals and promos always happening at both stores and Mammoth. So you just got to check the website, check our social, all those. And there's awesome deals happening right now.
Alex, maybe you should take your mother some of the tinctures. You know, Alex's mom really needs the help sleeping, but she's also old school and she's kind of like opposed to the whole THC thing. So Alex, maybe you hit her with the tincture.
You know what though? Like you said, you're coming out with the pain stuff, your first pain brand. Yeah. I have finally broken her. I can now give her, she's open to taking like, what do they call, like rubs or whatever?
Topicals.
Topicals. There you go. That's
Alex, don't worry. I will take good care of her when Oxnard Holistics opens.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hell.
Yeah, that's right. That's happening.
I might move my studio.
805. Yeah.
805 representing. Hey, Ben, it is great to talk to you. Congratulations to you and to Carolina and to all of your success at your company. And we'll look forward to having you back again. And we thank everybody for watching and listening today. And we'll see you next time on the Holistics Highlights podcast.